Hi guys, if you have already watched more than 10 plus videos on web development roadmap, trust me, this one is different. I'm not going to be talking about basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript and backend. I'm going to help you think with the mindset of being performance, scalability and software architecture that helps you become a better software developer, get that job, cut the competition and whatnot. So if you're interested in that, let's get this video started. The first part that comes is the front end. Front end basically has got HTML, CSS and JavaScript. I'm just going to throw very small light on this. Now in your journey as you progress from day 0, you don't need to spend more than 30 days on the front end part. You just need to learn basics of HTML, learn about the headings, learn about the entire code structure of an HTML file, and then learn about basic syntax and tags, learn about how to put links and how to create buttons, how to build forms. I think form 1 is really important because we use this a lot when we progress towards a better software developer. So learn the basics in HTML. This is just a 1 day or 2 day task, not more than that. Then move towards the CSS. Now moving towards the CSS can be quite complex as it goes. It handles really the design part of the website. Whatever the design is, it handles how the website looks, how good it looks, how are the animations. So CSS looks towards that part. Now you don't need to master it, just learn basic concepts about grid and flexbox and how to use it, learn about padding and margins and and then some basic frameworks like Tailwind or Bootstrap. Just get a good hang of what CSS is, just the basics. Don't get too much into design part, how I have to create better designs, better this and that. You will be just wasting your time. So don't give CSS more than 1 week, I would say. So in about 10 days, get a good hang of basic HTML and basic CSS so you can design basic stuff and get used to basic tags and syntaxes. After those 10 days comes JavaScript. Now JavaScript basically is the working part of your website, whatever the functions or however user interacts with the website. Now how the interaction or how the feature works is based on the JavaScript. You don't need to spend 2-3 months learning entire JavaScript. Learn about basic stuff. What are the different sorts of data types, learn about const, learn about let, learn about var, learn about global context, learn about local context, learn about closures, learn about if-else statements, loops, arrays, and all those different methods that come with the arrays like map, like filter, these things. Learn about set timeouts, time intervals, learn about async await, learn about HTTP protocols, learn about these basic stuff that help you basically create features that help you to get started. Learn about on-click functions, these are important. And once you get a basic hang of these 15-20 concepts, I would say, you are good to move ahead. Don't learn about each and every concept of the JavaScript like classes and whatnot and then mess your head up. You should be just capable enough that if you think I have to build this feature, you should go and read about how to build it, read some documentation, and just build that feature, not focus on the entire JavaScript for 3 months. That is not going to be a good approach. A good approach is to get out of the tutorial hell. A good approach is to learn the basics, start building fast, quick. Fast, quick. Fast, quick. The backend comprises of a server, a database that you store your data in, and how the data flows from the front end to the back end and to the storage. So these data flows are managed by APIs. So if you sum up the backend part, these are the 3 things. Now you must have heard about these things in every other video. I'm going to dive a little more into the performance, the architectural understanding, and the scalability part of the backend. See, the core idea is for you to learn the backend fast and quick. Once you have a good hang of these backend systems, then you can work on to improve your skills and improve your concepts of backend engineering. What comes first in backend? You have to create a server. So what is a server basically? Server is what handles the request whenever the front end is connected to a backend. So whatever request that a user puts, let's say he submits a form, right? The form has several details like name, phone number, subject, interest, any form. So these data needs to be updated in the database. This entire process flows through a server. Server gets the request, server makes the query to the database, and then database updates that value, updates the information, stores that data, right? So server is basically a 24/7 live computer that handles requests from the front end, from the database, makes queries, these sorts of things. And you have to learn about HTTP protocols, what are GET requests, what are PUT requests, patch, delete, update. You have to learn about the status codes, and yeah, that is pretty much it. You don't need to learn a ton about server. You have to learn about the port concepts, on which port your current web app is running, these sort of concepts. Then comes the database. Now database is a very integral part of a backend system, because as the system progresses or scales, as the numbers of users scale, database design becomes very, very critical, because your queries need to be fast enough. So you need to focus on learning the database design and structure and whatnot. So pick any sort of SQL or non-SQL database. You could choose MongoDB, you could choose Postgres. I believe these two are the most famous or the most used in the current day market. And then comes what is the API. API is basically a request that you make to the front end or the back end or any third-party server you are using to fetch data or to save data. It stands for Application Programmable Interface. Once you get a good hang of these things in about 1 month, so 1 month for front end, 1 month for back end, now you are able to create basic applications, right? You are able to create basic applications. You could jump to a framework called React and learn about its basics and features. Now, once that is done, you should follow a few projects online. So you should follow basic projects, few projects that help you with a good understanding. And just as you learn these concepts in 2 months, start building stuff now, because the real learning happens in building. Read the documentation, read how feature works, and then start building. Real learning comes from getting your hands dirty. So the real learning is not just being able to create a feature or a website. It really comes down to the performance and the scalability part of things, right?
Hey, sorry to cut you off, but recently I was working on a React project. It is a social media app, and I have utilized a lot of concepts that are used in the industry, like pagination, like live refresh or infinite scrolling, a lot of features that impresses the recruiters or the hiring people. You can talk about it in the interviews and get an edge over other candidates. So if you want a video, if you want a video, a review one where I explain these concepts and how am I using them in my project, please tell me in the comments and I will happy to make a video on that. Now let's get back to this video.
So talking about performance, it is basically made up of two things. First is how fast your server works. So how quick it can handle those multiple requests from the front end, and how can it serve those requests? How fast could it do it? And the second part is how many users it can handle without breaking or without giving bugs to multiple users. So let's say your system you have built for 10,000 users, and in future down the line it increases to 50,000 users. Now, can your backend scale? So the performance comprises of these two aspects of things. Now, what are the real hindrance to your performance? So first of the real core hindrance is your database design and queries. So if you're storing data not in an efficient manner, if your queries are slow, ultimately a lot of the users will have to wait to get that data back on the front end. Now, as they are waiting, the CPU load increases. Your systems slow down, and the user experience is really poor or buggy. They think this app is not efficient, does not work fast. So you need to be really critical about database designing. The second bottleneck is the data flow that you create. If you're building a feature and you don't need to make 10 different API calls for each and every data. You need to learn how to create better data flows that can get the job done in basically less API calls or less number of requests from the server. So the load does not saturate your server and just your CPU basically dies. So these are critical problems that come in performance. Now, how to deal with these problems? There are two really good techniques, right? The first one is called the cache memory. If a data is being used by a user again and again, so you don't need to make those data requests every time from your server, because databases are slow. Like, not slow in a general sense, but they are slower than your memory. So what you do is you take that small portion of data and you store that in the memory. So whenever the user needs that data again and again, it does not serve from the database or the server. It directly takes up from the memory, and this way you basically cut that long path short, and the performance is optimized. The second part is the CDN. So what CDN does is it basically contains all your static data, the images. So if you fetch these things from your server, it takes time because these have certain storage, right? Now, if you can basically store these static data, images, texts on the front end of the website, if you can store that in the CDN, then it also bypasses that long route and then makes the performance efficient. I believe every code you do, every feature you build, every design you make, you have to keep this performance thing in your mind. And then comes the scalability part. Scalability is not about how fast your server works as the performance is. It is more about as you add more users and more systems to your solution, it does not break. It scales efficiently. You can add more systems, more designs, more features in the long run, and it works smooth. The user experience is good enough. So that is what the scalability is about. Now, how do you address it? You basically try to find what systems or what features or what API calls are increasing the load on the server, right? And then you bifurcate that traffic into multiple servers, multiple systems. You go very aggressive on implementing the caching part and the CDN part. You go very aggressive on that. So ultimately, your systems are better scalable, have better performance. I think the learning you could take away from this video is, once you give those 2 months to learning front-end and back-end part, start building projects, basic ones, learn from different projects online, on YouTube and whatnot, and start learning about systems and architecture, performance, scalability. Then you become a better engineer, you're on a better roadmap. In the long run, you will kill the competition. I hope this video was valuable to you, and I hope you learned something today. If you are into tech and building systems, becoming a better software engineer, I will be pushing out a lot more content on this topic. Please consider subscribing and give a big thumbs up, smash that like button, and then we will see you in the next video. Take care.